All right, so today we're diving into a topic that I think most of our listeners are probably pretty familiar with,
Uh-huh.
emergency funds.
Right. Yeah.
We're not going to rehash all the basics here,
Yeah.
but we're going to assume you already know why it's important and all that stuff.
Right.
We're going to kind of tackle some of the trickier questions.
Yeah.
Dig into some strategies that can really make a difference
Sure.
when you're building that financial safety net.
Okay.
And to help us navigate these choppy waters,
Yeah.
we've got some great insights from NerdWallet today.
Awesome.
So I think one of the things that often gets overlooked
Yeah.
is the psychological impact of
Mhm.
having a solid emergency fund.
I think that's right. I think it's not just about the money.
Yeah.
It's about that feeling of security and control that it gives you.
Yeah, it's like having this secret weapon against financial stress.
Exactly.
Like, you know that unexpected bill isn't going to totally derail your other goals.
Right.
And that can be so empowering. But I think one of the biggest challenges people face,
Yeah.
especially if they're already dealing with debt,
Mm.
is figuring out how to prioritize saving for an emergency fund when they're already feeling financially stretched.
Right.
So what advice do you have for those listeners
Yeah.
who might be in that situation?
That's a great question and a really common scenario. I think the key here is to shift your perspective a little bit.
Okay.
Instead of viewing it as saving versus paying off debt,
Right.
think of it as two sides of the same coin.
Okay.
Both are essential for building long-term financial stability.
So how do we find that balance?
Yeah.
Is it about splitting our efforts, or is there a more strategic approach?
I'd say it's more about finding a starting point that feels manageable
Right.
and then building momentum from there.
Okay.
Even if you can only spare $25 or $50 a month initially,
Yeah.
that's still a step in the right direction.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
It's like building a muscle, right? You start with the lighter weights and gradually increase the load as you get stronger.
Yeah. And as you start to see that emergency fund grow,
Yeah.
it can actually become a source of motivation
Oh, interesting.
to tackle your debt more aggressively.
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
It's like that sense of accomplishment. When you hit a fitness goal,
Exactly.
it motivates you to keep pushing further.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned freelancers earlier.
Right.
They often face unique challenges
Yeah.
when it comes to building an emergency fund because their income can be so unpredictable.
Absolutely. It's like trying to budget for a roller coaster ride.
Right.
You never know which way it's going to twist or turn next.
Yeah.
So how can freelancers approach building that financial safety net
Yeah.
when they don't have the luxury of a steady paycheck?
One strategy that can be really effective is to create a separate emergency fund bank account
Okay.
and treat it like a bill that needs to be paid every month.
Interesting.
Even if it's a small amount, the consistency helps build the habit
Yep.
and ensures that you're setting aside something even during leaner months.
That's a brilliant idea. It takes the guesswork out of saving.
Yeah.
It helps you stay consistent even when your income fluctuates.
Exactly. And another tip for freelancers
Yeah.
is to aim for the higher end of that 3 to 6 month emergency fund range,
Okay.
maybe even closer to 9 or 12 months.
That makes sense. It provides a bigger cushion
Right.
to absorb those inevitable income gaps.
Exactly. Now, while the amount you save is important, equally crucial is where you keep those funds.
Right.
We often hear about the importance of a high-yield savings account.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, are there ever situations
Okay.
where that might not be the best option?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
I think most people automatically default to a high-yield savings account.
Right.
But you're right. There might be other options worth considering.
Sure.
What are your thoughts?
Well, one thing to consider is the FDIC insurance limit,
Okay.
which, as many people know, is $250,000. But there are some nuances to that.
Okay.
It's per depositor per ownership category
Right.
for a financial institution.
Oh, that's right. It's not just a blanket $250,000 across the board.
Right.
So for someone with a larger emergency funds
Yes.
or multiple accounts,
Uh-huh.
that limit could come into play.
Right.
What are some strategies for navigating that?
You can strategically spread your savings across different institutions
Okay.
to maximize your FDIC coverage.
Gotcha.
Or if you have joint accounts,
Yeah.
make sure you understand how the ownership categories impact that limit.
That's really important information, especially for couples or anyone sharing finances.
Yeah.
It's like a little-known clause in the financial rule book
Right.
that can make a big difference in how your savings are protected.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about picking the right place to beat that money.
Yeah.
But I think for a lot of people, the real hurdle is actually getting started with saving.
Right.
It can be so daunting to look at that big long-term goal
Yeah.
and figure out where to even begin.
Totally. I completely agree. And that's why I'm a big fan of breaking down those big goals
Okay.
into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Yeah.
Instead of focusing on saving 3 months worth of expenses all at once, start with a smaller target like $500 or $1,000.
Yeah, that feels much less intimidating, right?
Right,
It's
exactly.
like that first step on a long hike.
Uh-huh.
You don't worry about reaching the summit right away.
Yeah,
You just focus on putting one foot in front of the other.
exactly. And once you hit that first milestone, you gain momentum and confidence.
Yeah.
It's like a snowball effect.
I like that.
The more you save, the more motivated you become to keep going.
Now, NerdWallet has some great advice on specific strategies
All right.
for building an emergency fund.
Uh-huh.
One that really stood out to me was this idea of automating your savings.
Oh, yeah.
It's like putting your savings on autopilot,
Right.
so you don't even have to think about it.
Automation is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
It takes the emotion and willpower out of the equation. There are so many great apps available now that make it super easy
Right.
to set up automatic transfers to your savings account.
Yeah.
Some even round up your purchases and transfer the spare change.
Yeah.
So you're saving without even noticing.
Oh, I love those Roundup apps. It's like finding hidden treasure in your everyday spending.
Exactly.
But for someone who might be new to automation, what are some key things to keep in mind?
Well, first, you want to make sure you're choosing a reputable app or service. Look for ones that have strong security measures in place
Right.
to protect your financial information.
That's crucial. We don't want any leaks in our financial safety net.
Exactly. Second, start small
Okay.
and gradually increase your automatic transfers.
Yeah.
As you get comfortable, you don't want to set it and forget it completely.
Right.
You still need to monitor your budget and
Yeah.
make sure those transfers align with your overall financial goals.
That's a great reminder. Automation shouldn't replace mindful spending.
Right.
It should enhance it.
Exactly. And finally, don't be afraid to experiment with different automation strategies.
Okay.
Some apps let you set specific savings goals, while others allow you to create challenges.
Oh, fun.
To boost your savings rate, find what works best for your personality and your financial habits.
Speaking of boosting your savings rate, what are your thoughts on adjusting your W-4 withholdings
Yeah.
to free up more cash flow throughout the year?
That can be a really effective strategy, especially if you're consistently getting a large tax refund.
Yeah.
It's like giving yourself a pay raise
Okay.
dedicated to your financial security.
I love that analogy. It's like taking control of your money
Uh-huh.
and redirecting it towards your own goals.
Right.
But I think a lot of people get intimidated
Yeah.
by the idea of messing with their tax withholdings.
Sure.
Is it really as complicated as it seems?
It's actually much simpler than most people think.
Okay.
The IRS has a really helpful online tool
Mm-hmm.
called the Tax Withholding Estimator
Okay.
that walks you through the process step by step.
That's reassuring. So it's not like we need a degree in accounting to make these adjustments.
Not at all. And if you're still unsure, you can always consult with a tax professional
Right.
to get personalized advice.
Now, another strategy that often gets overlooked is using those unexpected windfalls
Yeah.
to boost your emergency fund.
Right.
Whether it's a tax refund, a bonus, or even a gift
Uh-huh.
from a generous relative.
Right.
Those extra chunks of cash
Yeah.
can make a big difference.
I completely agree. Instead of viewing those windfalls as fun money, consider redirecting a portion or even all of it to your emergency fund.
Okay.
It's like giving your savings a turbo boost.
I love that it's like those bonus levels in a video game where you suddenly rack up a ton of extra points.
Exactly.
But let's be honest, sometimes it's hard to resist the temptation to spend those windfalls.
Right.
Any tips for staying disciplined?
I think the key is to have a plan in place
Okay.
before that money even hits your account. Decide ahead of time how much you want to allocate to your emergency fund, and then make that transfer as soon as possible.
That makes sense. It's like removing the temptation
Yeah.
before it even has a chance to take hold. It's
Exactly.
like that saying, out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. And remember, it's not about depriving yourself.
Right.
If you're redirecting a large windfall to your emergency fund, you can always allow yourself a small treat
Okay.
to celebrate your financial discipline.
I like that balance. It's about finding that sweet spot between responsible saving
Uh-huh.
and enjoying the fruits of your labor.
Right.
But I'm curious, are there ever situations where you might recommend using your emergency fund
Yeah.
for something other than a true emergency?
That's a really interesting question. I think it's important to stick to the definition of an emergency as closely as possible.
Okay.
We're talking about unexpected events that require immediate financial attention.
Right.
But there might be some gray areas where using your emergency fund could actually prevent a bigger financial setback down the road.
Could you give us an example?
Sure. Let's say your car needs a major repair and you don't have the cash on hand.
Okay.
If you don't fix the car, you might lose your job
Yeah.
because you can't get to work.
Right.
In that scenario, using your emergency fund to cover the repair could be considered a preventative measure to protect your income.
That's a great point. It's about being strategic
Yeah.
and using your emergency fund to prevent a smaller problem from escalating into a much larger one.
Exactly. It's about thinking long term and weighing the potential consequences of using your emergency fund
Right.
versus the potential risks of not using it.
So it sounds like there's a bit of an art to managing an emergency fund. It's not just about following a set of rigid rules. It's about being adaptable and making informed decisions based on your individual circumstances.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's about finding that balance between discipline and flexibility.
And speaking of finding balance,
Yeah.
I think it's important to acknowledge that building an emergency fund is just one piece of the larger financial puzzle.
Absolutely. It's like building a strong foundation for a house.
Yeah.
You need that solid base to support everything else you want to build on top of it.
Now, once you have that solid foundation in place, what are some other financial goals you might encourage listeners to start pursuing?
Yeah, it's like we've built this incredible financial fortress, right? This emergency fund that can withstand any storm. But now we need to think about what we want to build inside those walls.
Yeah, I love that analogy.
You know,
It really captures that sense of security and possibility
right.
that comes with having a solid financial foundation.
Yeah.
Once you have that emergency fund in place, it opens up so many doors.
Right.
You can start thinking about investing for retirement, saving for a down payment on a house.
Or even pursuing that dream vacation you've always wanted.
It's like we've graduated from survival mode to thriving mode, right?
Exactly.
We're not just trying to stay afloat anymore. We're charting our own course.
Yeah.
But for someone who's been so focused on building that emergency fund,
Right.
that shift in mindset can be tough.
Yeah.
Where do we even begin?
Yeah. I think it's important to start by identifying what truly matters to you.
Okay.
What are your values, your passions, your long-term aspirations?
Yeah.
Once you have a clear vision of what you want to achieve, you can start setting specific, measurable goals.
So it's not just about throwing money at random goals.
Right.
It's about aligning our financial decisions
Exactly.
with our core values. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
It makes the process so much more meaningful.
Yeah.
But what about those what-if moments?
Right.
You know, that fear that something unexpected will pop up and derail all of our plans.
That fear is completely understandable, and it's something we all grapple with to some extent.
Yeah.
But that's where the beauty of having that emergency fund comes in.
Oh.
It acts as a buffer, a safety net, that allows you to pursue those other goals with more confidence,
Yeah.
knowing you have a cushion to absorb any unexpected bumps in the road.
It's like we've got this trusty sidekick, this financial guardian angel watching over us
Exactly.
as we venture out into the world.
Right.
It takes so much pressure off.
Yeah.
But sometimes those other goals, like retirement,
Yeah.
feel so far away.
Right.
It's hard to stay motivated when the finish line seems distant.
Right.
Any tips for staying focused on those long-term goals?
One strategy I find helpful is to break down those long-term goals into smaller, more achievable milestones. For example, instead of focusing on saving $1 million for retirement,
Okay.
focus on increasing your retirement contributions by 1% each year.
That's such a great idea. It's like those step trackers
Exactly.
that encourage you to hit 10,000 steps a day.
Right.
It makes the big goal feel much more manageable.
And don't underestimate the power of visualization.
Okay.
Take some time to imagine yourself achieving those goals. Whether it's buying your dream home, traveling the world, or simply enjoying a comfortable retirement.
Yeah.
That sense of anticipation can be incredibly motivating.
I love that it's like creating a vision board for our financial future.
Exactly.
We're not just saving for a rainy day. we're saving for a sunny future.
Exactly. And remember, the journey to financial freedom is not a solo mission.
Right.
There are so many resources available to help you along the way,
Yeah.
whether it's financial advisors, online tools, or even supportive communities of like-minded individuals.
That's such an important point. It's like we're all in this together.
Exactly.
Cheering each other on.
Right.
As we navigate the ups and downs of our financial journeys.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into emergency funds and beyond, what's the one key takeaway you want listeners to remember?
I think the most important takeaway is that building a solid financial foundation is within everyone's reach. It's not about how much money you make. It's about making mindful choices, developing healthy habits, and prioritizing your financial well-being.
Beautifully said. It's about empowering ourselves to create a future where we feel secure, confident, and excited about the possibilities that lie ahead. So to all our deep divers out there, take that first step. Automate that savings transfer. Visualize your dream future. And remember, we're all in this together. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep diving deep into the world of knowledge with us.